Okay, we're going to talk about absolute value equations. Do you guys need me to turn on my microphone, or are we okay? You're gonna have to give me some feedback. One says okay, a couple say okay. All right. Absolute value equations. Now, some of you will already know how to do this, and that's awesome. But let's talk for just a second. If I've got the absolute value and it equals 12, tell me what x equals. 12 was obvious, right? Is negative 12 really obvious? Not as obvious, but once we stop and think about it, it's like, oh yeah, absolute value just means the positive of whatever number's in there. It's distance from 0. Remember, we always talk about distance being positive. Now, it's really friendly to do it when it looks like that. But then they start throwing things in, making it look harder and harder, and it becomes a little bit more complicated to think about it in our heads. So I am going to show you how to solve these equations, knowing that there are 2 possible solutions. Now, if there are possible solutions, that means you have to check them. I'll always tell you when there are equations that you have to check, and this is one of the times you have to check your answers to see if they work. So absolute value equations. I want to start, I think, where do I want to start? Let's change this one. Let's make this one equal 8. And we've got 2 solutions. We know one answer is going to be a positive value, and we know one answer is going to be a negative value. And so this is how we do it. First, get the absolute value bracket alone. Make that bigger so it doesn't look like an L. And I look at my first problem here. The absolute value is on its own side of the equal sign, right? There's nothing else there with it. So we've got step number 1 done. The second thing we're going to do is break it into 2 equations. One positive and the other negative. And I'll show you what I mean by that right now, after you get caught up with those notes. All right. So I'm going to break it into 2 equations. I'm going to have x minus 3 equals positive 8. And I'm going to have x minus 3 equals negative 8. Solve both of those equations. What will we have on the left-hand side? Add 3, we get x equals 11. On the right-hand side, add 3, we get x equals negative 5. And so then we need to check. Just put check right there on the end. Sometimes we can do them in our head. Sometimes you need to write them down, but I think this is one we can do in our head. Plug 11 in. 11 minus 3 is 8. Absolute value of 8 is 8. So we know we've got that one. Negative 5. What's negative 5 minus 3? Negative 8. Absolute value of negative 8 is 8. So those both work. You should write your answers as a set of numbers. Am I giving you guys enough time to write your notes? Okay. Moving on to the second problem. Is the absolute value alone on its own side of the equal sign? What's there that I need to get rid of? Yeah, the 2. So this is 2 times. How do I undo that 2 times? Divide both sides by 2. So now I've got 4 equals absolute value of y plus 5. All right, I've done that step 1. Get the absolute value alone. Okay, second part, break into 2 equations. 1 equals the positive, 1 equals the negative. So we're going to say, I'm going to kind of flip this as I write it down. I've got y plus 5 equals a positive 4, and y plus 5 equals a negative 4. Solve both of those. All right, JC, will you check -1? And Jaden, will you check -9? Let us know if they work. You can just shout it out when you know. Yep. Okay, that one checked. Yep, and that one works too. So our answers there are -9 and -1. All right, last one together. Katie, tell me, what do I need to do to start working on this one? Divide by 8. So I get -1/2 equals x plus 2. All right, Crystal, what would we do next?
Break into 2.
Yeah, that's where we are. Yep, break it into 2. We just did the divide. So now I've got the -1. So I need to do the positive 1. Is anybody picking up on something weird in this problem?
It's a negative.
It is a negative. What does that mean?
You can't do it
Why not?
because an absolute value is always going to be positive.
You guys catching what Jacob's saying there? This says the absolute value of whatever is in here is going to be a negative number. But by definition, we know the absolute value needs to be positive. So I could keep doing this work, and chances are there might be a problem that you don't catch that and you end up doing the work. But what do we know right here if we do catch it? It's impossible. So what's our answer going to be?
0.
Not going to be 0. 0 is an answer.
0 ways.
Probably no solution.
No solution. There are 0 ways to do it. So that would be, Jacob, would be the 0 with the line through it, the null set. All right. So this is a big no solution. And we picked up on that without doing any math by paying attention to this part, right? That the absolute value equal to negative. How many of you think you might miss that in your homework? I might. All right, so let's just do half of one of these so we can see what happens. So this is a big reason why you check your solution. So if I took away 2, I get -1.5 equals x, right? Now, if I didn't check my work, I might think -1.5 is a great answer. But let's plug it in here. What's -1.5 plus 2? -1.5 plus 2 is half, right? Does 1/2, the absolute value of 1/2, equal -1/2? That's not the same, right? So there you know it would be a bad answer. So that's why we kind of always need to check. But if you can catch it right here, save yourself some heartache. All right? That's it. You'll have an assignment in Alex. And pull up last week's homework and let me help with whatever you're stuck on.
You got it, Roger?